Hello, everybody. Um, this is a video we are recording for KRSchannel. And I am Dr. Kanoli Sandeep Krishnan, and I'm joined by Dr. Aditya Togi. We'll be discussing more about Pi Paddathi. We already made an introductory video about Pi Paddathi on KRSchannel. But then Kapiel Ji wanted to really make a really in-depth video where we go full in-depth and we'll be analyzing one single chart, and that's how we will share more about Pi Paddathi and the more different layers of it. And so yeah, let me also take this time to welcome Aditya.
Hey, thanks, Sandeep. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. So actually, we are doing this video for KRSchannel, and we'll be talking about an individual chart and with different planets and how they play their role in Pi Paddathi. And we'll try to. I think it's a good exercise to do to understand Pi Paddathi better and how different planets shape up an individual's life. So yeah, I look forward for the talk. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for joining. So now let's see. I'll just begin to share my screen.
Sure.
Let's see. So okay. Let's see. Okay, great. Yeah. So you're seeing a lotus flower.
Yeah.
You can see a lotus flower. It's a Pusha Nakshatra day. So great moment.
Okay.
So it's a great thing. But yeah, I'm just calling this presentation Pi Paddathi Applied, and we are just going to analyze a single chart. That's about it. Yeah, Pi Paddathi itself has many layers to it, and I'm going to maybe perhaps show a glimpse of all the different layers that is possible. And yeah, it can be too much. So I would recommend I've structured it in a way so that you would understand some basics for sure. But then I would definitely recommend, if you haven't seen our previous video of Pi Paddathi, please do watch that so that you may also understand this more. So now let's see. And before I begin, I just want to make this disclaimer and make sure everyone is aware. Please do not use this technique to create any kind of fear within yourself or within someone else, because astrology is a very powerful science of deeper consciousness, and once you implant that fear, it can continue to affect the other native. So it is very, very important to not to use this technique to create fear. I cannot emphasize that enough. And this technique is very powerful, as you will see. Again, we do not want to create any negative predictions, to create a negative psychological impact. Having said that, there will be negative events in our life, but just looking at those events in a positive frame of mind, actually, within a positive framework, even on that of the planets, will help you understand the energies of the planets much, much better. And definitely, we don't want Dr. Pi's name to be associated with any negative predictions. So it's like all karma is going to come back to him because it's his name that's being connected with the technique. So that's definitely not the intention of this technique. But simply use this technique to understand the nakshatras and interaction of how those planetary energies are playing out in your chart. That will help you understand it in this technique in a much more deeper manner. So let's see.
That's good, Sandeep. You have put this disclaimer before the talk. Good.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because I've seen many astrologers, once they can see that, okay, I can make a prediction about this native, they just go blunt. There's a native, and many natives, I've started reading. So so some clients would come and say that, the astrologers would say blunt, you cannot do this, you cannot do that, And then it's kind of interesting, actually, and once you begin to study astrology, it becomes very clear, like how important it is to have the correct frame of mind to really approach this subject. So yeah. So now, as I said, let me talk about some simple basics of Pi Paddathi. If you take any planet, you know that that planet has its own exaltation sign, Rashi where it is exalted. You
Correct.
know there is a Rashi where it is debilitated. And you
Correct.
know that it is, this planet can also be the lord of a particular Rashi as well. It can be owning certain Rashis. And finally, there is one more particular position which is known as Mulatrikona. For those who don't know what Mulatrikona is like the home office Rashi of that particular planet. That planet feels most comfortable there. The planetary energies will feel very harmonious there in that particular Rashi because it is expressing those particular planet's energies very much easily.
Correct.
Exaltation is like the.
I have a quick question, Sandeep.
Sure.
Sorry to interrupt. What did you took for Rahu and Ketu here? Can you just?
Yeah, we have a slide on Rahu and Ketu. We'll definitely talk about that. I think Rahu is exalted in Taurus and debilitated in Scorpio, and vice versa for Ketu. That's what I've taken. But having said that, this is the fundamental concept of Pi Paddathi. Any planet has these 4 particular Rashis that you can connect with it, and then each of these Rashis can be connected with a particular house number when you analyze each particular planet. And again, planets can take 3 particular roles within this framework. So one role is that of the Nakshatra Lord. So it could be the Nakshatra Lord planet whose exaltation, debilitation, lordship, and Multrikon Rashis you are analyzing. It can also be the Rashi Lord. So this is a very interesting concept. Not many people have been exposed to this. So this is just the idea is that you can also look at the Rashi Lord and look at these exaltation, Multrikon, lordship, and debilitation concepts, and look at those particular Rashis for that Rashi Lord planet, and then you will begin to get a different idea for sure. You can.
So when we did the Pi Paddathi video, we just focused our attention on Nakshatra Lord, correct?
Exactly.
Now we have to even you're telling us to do for Rashi Lord also.
Exactly. You can use it for Rashi Lord, and it will give you magical results. And once you begin to use Rashi Lord concept, once you begin to apply Pi Paddathi upon the Rashi level, when you apply these, observing and analyzing these particular Rashis for this Rashi Lord planet, then it's as if you're seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah, that's what you say.
Yeah, within which the Nakshatra. Yeah, Nakshatra Lord is giving, the Nakshatra Lord planet is giving the finer picture of how things are playing out. Okay. And then obviously, like, as I explained the Rashi Lord, you can also look at these exaltation, debilitation, Multrikon, and lordships of the planet itself. And that is also going to give a flavor. So the planet is exalted in particular Rashi. This Rashi Lord is exalted in particular Rashi. It's the Nakshatra Lord is exalted in particular Rashi. And you will finally see how different layers of that planetary energies are expressing itself. So this is
very complex. It becomes so complex. It's like a complex structure.
Yeah, it becomes a complex. Definitely, that's a great point. It becomes very complex. So it becomes like a judgment call. When do you stop? How finer of a layer detail do you want to go? And Kapilji actually mentioned that go full on. So I wanted to go full on, and so just to even just to expose people to this simple, detailed analysis, but yeah, this is the fundamental concept. Looking at the 4 Rashis: exaltation, debilitation, lordship, Multrikon Rashis, and I made the upward facing triangle as the exaltation symbol. The downward facing triangle is the debilitation. Lordship is the circular symbol, and Multrikon is the square. So as I mentioned, Multrikon is like the home office. It's like you are in your home. Exaltation Rashi is like the casino or the luxury resort where the planet is extremely happy. Debilitation is like the bad resort, the bad hotel you are stuck in. And lordship is what? It's the duties which that planet has to perform. So that's the circular, that things are always going in circle. It's always there in your mind, things like that for that planet. Okay, so I explained, hopefully this particular concept is clear. At least people should get these 4 images should be very clear. And I'll be repeating these images again. So let's see. Now, these 4 Rashis should be very, very clear. We are looking at exaltation Rashi. We are looking at debilitation Rashi, Multrikon Rashi, lordships. And then finally, we'll connect all this with the house numbers for each of these individual Rashis. Now, we are going to analyze these particular 4 Rashis, these particular 4 sets of Rashis for one particular chart. So we will be analyzing the chart of Hitler. Now, Hitler is one of the most famous personalities to have ever lived. He was a great leader for German people, but he was also the leader who was responsible for Holocaust. And definitely, if the viewers, especially the ones who have been through a history class, would have studied about Hitler. So Hitler is someone whose actions we know. He's a very famous leader who brought about great change, brought about great destruction. And he was one of the main leaders who was responsible for the World War II, the Second World War, and brought about great destruction. A lot of karmas were definitely expressed through this native's life, through Hitler's life. So now let's look at Hitler's chart. What is Hitler's chart telling us? Basically, just to looking at a simple overview, you can say that Hitler has a Libra ascendant, and look at his 4 planets crowded. There's also Gulgan Manti in his 7th house of Aries. So
when I see this chart, my eyes really go into the 7th house where you have so much clustering of things there.
Exactly. So you have Sun there, which is a very important planet. You have Venus, his ascendant lord there. You have Mars there, which is the 7th lord itself. Mercury, which is the 9th lord and 12th lord. So Aries is definitely an important expression of Hitler's karma. And Aries is actually the Rashi associated with war. Psychological warfare is associated with Scorpio. The actual war is associated with Aries. So you could definitely say that Hitler brought about a lot of war and destruction as an expression of his karma. And he was definitely a great leader. And but actually, if you begin to read about Hitler's life, one of the interesting things that comes up is that this interesting thing comes up when you actually look at his chart from a nakshatra angle. His ascendant is actually falling in Chitra nakshatra. Now, what does Chitra mean? Chitra means a picture, right? Chitra means art. Chitra is all about attention, create. Yeah, Chitra is like picture. It's like a picture. That's what the Sanskrit meaning is. And Hitler actually wanted to be an artist when he was young.
Is it?
Yeah, he wanted to be an artist when he was young. But he was, interestingly, he was rejected. His application to the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna was rejected. And because of which he was inclined towards, fighting for war. So because he could have potentially have been an artist. Now you can see that's the expression of Chitra energy. Chitra energy is like the picture, the creative energy. Hitler definitely had a lot of creative forces within him. There was no doubt. And let's see. And Chitra, the nakshatra lord of Chitra is Mars. So now we are going to analyze the 4 sets of Rashis which I previously described for Mars. And his Mars is actually going into 7th house. So had Hitler been an artist, he would definitely have been a great artist. But if he had been an artist, he would have been definitely expressing all his war energy in his art. That could be for sure. So he made an art, literally he could have made a art out of war. There's no doubt about that. But interestingly, Hitler's life turned out differently. And the Rashis, the 4 sets of Rashis makes it very clear. So what is the exaltation sign of Mars, Aditya?
Exaltation sign of Mars is Capricorn.
Okay, that is shown by the upward facing triangle here. What is the debilitated sign of Mars?
Cancer.
So it is Cancer. Now, what signs do Mars own? What are the Mars's lords of which signs?
Aries and Scorpio.
Aries and Scorpio.
Oh, that's why you put the 2 circles for lordships. Okay.
Right. Okay. 2 circles. And what is the Mulatrikon position of Rashi of Mars?
I think it's again Aries, correct?
It's again Aries. Exactly. So now look at this chart again.
It's interesting, Sandeep, because you told Chitra. Chitra is also connected with, I think, some weapons and all too.
Exactly.
Correct?
Exactly.
I don't know whether
yeah, exactly.
Had Chitra. I'm not
exactly.
I'm not sure.
You are spot on, Aditya, because Twastar was the Vishwakarma is the celestial architect. He created not only the entire universe, but he also created great weapons like Sudarshana Chakra. It is said that he took off some glory of the sun, from the sun, and fashioned that into Sudarshana Chakra and gifted it to Lord Vishnu. So
correct.
Chitra natives can have connection with weapons, or in this day and age, it can be connected with tools which they make. So that is a big.
Chitra is also with war, right? I don't know if you see KRSchannel Rao. He has also got something with Chitra.
Ken Rao, Professor Ken Rao has something. He has something in Chitra for sure. And Chitra is
so again fighting. He has to fight with for the astrology and all too.
Yeah, Chitra, actually, Vishwakarma himself fought war with Indra. That is also another story. He had greater opponents against whom he fought. That's one big theme for Chitra natives also.
So Chitra is not only beautiful pictures, but with war destruction, war too, I guess.
No, but this is the thing. See, what is the connection between the pictures and war? The idea is that these natives are gifted technically. These natives are gifted very technically. So an artist is very technical about his drawing. There are like different colors which you're using, all of that. Even an engineer is very technical about his drawing, creations, his engineering things, whatever it is. The weapon designer, he has to be very technical, very detail oriented about his drawing, his creation. And clearly you can see that attention to detail in Hitler's life. There's no doubt about that, But what is interesting is that by looking at these Rashis that we have highlighted here, you can see how these energies have been focused and directed in his life. For instance, Hitler's Mars is exalted in 4th house. What is 4th house? 4th house is homeland.
Homeland, yeah.
Homeland, So he definitely expresses creative energies in increasing the Martian presence in the homeland. He was one of the first leaders. So you can clearly see that he increased Martian things in his homeland. When he came to power, he developed, he set this infrastructure projects in his homeland. Mars is connected to engineering projects. And he was also Chitra is also connected to architects. So he created a lot of buildings, in his homeland once he got elected to power. And not only that, he definitely was, he definitely had his own architectural ideas. That was one of the big things. And he had to have his own architectural ideas expressed clearly. You can clearly see that Mars exalted in 4th house. In Germany, there was completely filled with all kinds of architectural projects which Hitler created. And one of the biggest motivation for creating those architectural projects was war. Mars is the planet that is associated with war. Once he got into power, within 4 years, he was like, we are preparing for war. And that was his entire strategy. And you can clearly see this big influence.
I think his war activities also became prominent in his Mars Dasha, I guess.
Well, actually, it was more prominent in his Rahu Dasha. But Mars Dasha was when he developed this ideology of war, ideology of anti-Semitism. We should be eliminating the Jews, And again, look at where Mars is debilitated. Mars is debilitated in his 10th house. So the way you can see these energies playing out is that because there is a debilitation of Mars energy happening in his 10th house of career, there will be these natives will express a void. They'll feel that, okay, I need to fill this void. So many times what happens is that these natives will try to fill this void with this particular energy early on. And what happened in Hitler's case was that when he turned 21 or so, he signed up for the army. He actually signed up for the army, and you can see that Martian influence happening in his career. So he signed up for the army, and he was a messenger for the army early on, and you can clearly see that very well through this particular Rashi placement of debilitation, Rashi of Mars falling in Cancer, which is his 10th house from his ascendant, and you are making the nakshatra as ascendant to analyze this particular Rashi right now. And Mars is also his Mool Trikona in 7th house. It's only when he could, his Mars also conjunct all these other planets. So only when he rose to the political power, and only when you could clearly see that he would rise in politics. So he had to make use of other planetary energies also, which is Sun, Mercury, Venus, along with his Mars overall. And he had to make use of partners as well. Initially, he used to make use of partners. And then, the 7th house energy of Mars would express itself. So his partners will
also for masses, big group of people and all, correct?
Right, exactly. So you can clearly see that play out, one of his big karmas from his ascendant nakshatra is to bring about death and destruction to the masses. There's no doubt about that. His Martian energy is going to express itself, and we'll analyze that particular nakshatra in further detail for sure. But I just want to spend more time on the slide because so that we could see how these rashis are playing out clearly, and how you can make the nakshatra as ascendant, and you can see how it's playing out in those natives' lives. In Hitler's life, you can clearly see that play out. He was a great leader. His speeches were very, magnetizing. Those riveting. All of that.
Why? You said it's destruction, but see, when you say each planet has got its own positives and negatives, fine. Now here, why do you think that it has gone more into the negative part of destruction and all? Why not into positive part? See, Mars, we can say, okay, negative part is for destruction and all, positive part is like upliftment and all too, using war and all, can be uplifting thing too. But see, planets behave in both ways. So how to discern between whether it is going to be in a positive way or a negative way?
Right. Actually, that's a good question. One of the best ways to look at that planet is to analyze it deeper. So let's look at what happens at his Navamsha layer. Where is his Mars going into his Navamsha? His ascendant is actually going into Scorpio. He has a Scorpio Navamsha. But his Mars is also going into Scorpio. Now, his Mars is in Aries in his Rashi chart. It is going into 8th house from itself in Scorpio, So it is in Aries here, and it is going into 8th house in Scorpio in his Navamsha. So that is an Ashtamamsa Pada. That is how that planet will finally express itself. So it is clearly showing that there's going to be a lot of death-like rebirth, death-like destruction. A lot of 8th house themes can happen. That is how finally his life path will go. And it won't be an easy life path for natives with such a placement. They'll go through a lot of transformation. But the biggest thing is that if they had a spiritual mind, if they have a spiritual framework to deal with this transformation, then they can bring in lots of spiritual transformation within themselves. But Hitler, as we'll go, Hitler definitely did not have a spiritual outlook. So you can clearly see himself that is one way for sure. And then you also have to look at the overall chart to get a deeper perspective, which is what we'll do when we analyze each of the other planets as well. So this is one thing. It's a good question, Aditya. Why didn't Hitler become a great engineer? Why not that? But why did he end up being a leader? Another influence can also be that there are 3 malefics that are influencing.
Leader is okay, but why did a leader with horrible karmas, like bad so-called bad activities?
Right. So the moment he becomes a leader, his Ashtamamsa Mars will be activated. So there's going to be a lot of death and destruction that's happening. Rashi chart is how it will physically express itself. So this death and destruction which the Navamsha is pointing out will happen to the masses. Literally, that's what happened. Even with his partners as well. We'll look into that also. But you can clearly see that the final layer of Pai Paddathi is to look at the Navamsha placement of the Nakshatra Lord. You can even look at the Navamsha placement of the ascendant itself. Ascendant is going into Scorpio, which is 2nd house. Now Mars is the 2nd lord. And it was only when there was an emergency at his homeland, only when there was financial troubles in his homeland, financial death in his homeland, that Hitler could rise to power. You can clearly see how these Rashis are playing out, and this financial death like rebirth, is clearly being shown through the Scorpio placement of this ascendant as well. And Hitler himself had a lot of death like rebirths happening in his life, no doubt about that. So, especially with his partners. Why partners? Mars is in 7th house. Actually, one of his partners killed herself, tried to commit suicide herself.
No, death like also become Barney, Barney Nakshatra.
Exactly. Barney is under, death, literally death. Yama is the god of death.
Yeah.
So that is a interesting, interesting nakshatra energy is expressing. There's a lot of, and you have, when many things are pointing at the same line, then you can finally say, okay, there will be a lot of death-like themes, there can be a lot of death-like destruction, or there can be destruction. It's like malefics influencing Barney, Ashtamamsa Pada. And then finally, you are getting a bigger, more accurate picture of how his Martian energies will be expressed. So, also, if you look at his Mars, Jupiter's influence is in really saving him, because Jupiter's aspect upon Mars, because Jupiter is also the 6th lord. So it's like this Jupiter's influence was more about thinking of enemies also, even in spite of Jupiter being a benefic. It's 10 hours. So that is one. So we analyze this Mars to death. But let's go to the next slide. So now we have looked at Mars, but now here I wanted to present a different perspective. The perspective was that of looking at different planetary influences. So I'm going to ask you one question, Aditya. What is the exaltation sign of Saturn?
Libra.
What is the debilitation sign of Sun?
Libra.
What is the Multrikon sign of Venus?
Multrikon sign is Venus. Lordship is also Venus.
So Libra. Definitely we can look at Libra. Now
Libra.
These particular planetary influences, So
Libra is common for all this.
Exactly. Libra is common for all this, and that is exactly what Hitler had his ascendant on. Now let's look at how this Paddathi, looking at these particular influences, analyzing Libra Rashi by simply analyzing, considering the influences of these planets is playing out. So Saturn is exalted in Libra, Sun is debilitated in Libra, Venus has its lordship there, and Venus has its Multrikon there in Libra. Okay. Now simply, if you were to look at Libra Rashi, you can say that over Hitler's lifetime, he had a lot of difficulties. Saturn is exalted, and there was this element of time and maturity that had to happen.
That will be common for everyone.
Exactly.
Libra.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
I think Hitler it is special because it is occurring in his ascendant.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. Wherever you have Libra, you will have these planetary influences for sure.
Correct.
What kind of planetary influences? Saturn's exaltation is happening there. So there is the element of time and maturity and discipline that is needed, and he's having his Sun debilitated there. So you could say that Hitler had more motivation to go for political power. So as I mentioned earlier, there is this void of solar energy. He doesn't have that Sun energy. So he'll try to fill up that void. So trying to fill up that void through politics was definitely one of the things which Hitler did over his lifetime. And then over time, which is what Saturn is indicating, he became a great leader in his country also. He became the president. He became the chancellor. He became the dictator of his country. You can see that clearly, this Saturn and Sun influence happening. And then Venus is having its Multrikon here. Hitler died 2 days after his marriage. Hitler died, he got married. 2 days after his marriage, he died. And obviously, the Allied forces were attacking him. So you can clearly see that. But Venus Multrikon is showing that the image he had with the people was that of a celibate monk. He was like Narendra Modi of Germany. Literally, he was like someone who didn't have any relationships. But people in his inner circle knew that he had a relationship. He had a partner who was the actress Eva Braun, and that is also interesting. Again, he met this partner in a photographer's studio, which is again connecting with Chitra. So you can see how all of these themes are playing out. He met this partner in photographer's studio. Again, and but you can see this, and relationships definitely had a big impact upon his life. It said that he was living with his niece, and they definitely had sexual relations with each other. Many historians have different views about that. But his niece committed suicide. We already talked about how Mars is in 7th house. His niece committed suicide by shooting her lungs. You can see that again, with Mars being in Ashwini. Ashwini is connected with Prana, his nostril. The Ashwini Kumars are born from the nostrils. So nostril is again connected.
Niece is also 7th house, Sandeep. Is it correct, Sandeep?
No, niece is actually Mercury. Mercury is also in Ashwini.
No, which house niece will represent? Because it is, I don't know whether it was
niece.
brother's daughter or son's daughter or sister's daughter.
I think it's from mother. Actually, nieces and nephews are seen also through Mercury, also through 6th house, also through 5th house from 6th house. That can be from the mother side. 5th house from 11th house or the 3rd house can also be seen through look for from the father side. So children of your uncles and aunts.
I was thinking because siblings, correct? Siblings come from third house, and children of siblings. So children of siblings is like fifth house from the third.
Right. Even some astrologers consider Mars Venus conjunction. Like you are having a relationship with a brother-like person or with a sibling-like person. Even that could also be one aspect for that for Hitler. But for Hitler's case, definitely he had a relationship with his half niece, and one big thing was that his half niece committed suicide, which pulled him into depression. And that's something you can clearly see how these relationships impacted his life path even, And so this is all I did here is to look at Libra Rashi, look at all the exaltation, debilitation, the lordship, the Multiko, and then I was able to see how Hitler's life played out, literally, So that is how powerful Paddathi is, Again, there is this entire soul cycle side, which I won't go in so much detail in this session, but to understand this layer itself is a great, will definitely help others. You can similarly in your chart, you can look at the ascendant, look at what other planetary influences are there. Then you can definitely make more analysis there. So now let's look more into detail with Venus, because Hitler actually has a very powerful Venus. Look at the Rashis connected with Venus. His Venus is actually retrograde. Venus is his Lagna Lord now. So Libra ascendant, Lagna Lord is Venus. Venus is in Bharani Nakshatra. Now, what is the exaltation sign of Venus, Aditya?
Pisces.
Pisces. What is the debilitation sign of Venus?
It should be Virgo.
Virgo. What is the signs which Venus owns?
It's Taurus and Libra.
Taurus and Libra. What is the Multrikon sign of Venus, which we saw in the previous slide?
Again Libra, yeah.
Again Libra. Okay. Now here is the interesting thing. So Hitler had a lot of Venusian.
Now what you are doing is, instead of Mars, you are taking Venus and studying now.
Exactly. So you are making Venus as ascendant. You're looking at these particular Rashis with Venus as ascendant or Bharani Nakshatra as ascendant. And then suddenly you're getting a different picture of how his life path played out. So as I mentioned, only people in his inner circle knew about his relationship. His Venus is exalted in 12th house. So his relationships were definitely private. No one knew about his relationship. Venus is having its Multrikon on his 7th house. So definitely Venus, he had relationships for sure. And forming political alliances was a big part of his life. He had to form political alliances, and literally Venus is also the guru of demons, really. So he really had the demonic alliances, you could say that, He had to play out that particular role of guru of the demons. And again, look at Bharani Nakshatra energy. Bharani Nakshatra is about death like rebirth. Bharani Nakshatra is all about rebirth, the symbols of womb. And you can see how this, how he rose to, how his life involved rebirth kind of themes, which had second house connection, or financial rebirth had to happen for him to really rise in his life. When the world entered into Great Depression in 1929, only then could he rise to power. And you can see that, Venus is having its Multrikon in 7th house. Venus is also the second lord. And this Bharani Nakshatra is connected with second house of wealth. And how that was enabling his 7th house rise in power. And he definitely had great foreign allies. You could say that, a lot of foreign diplomacy, things like that. Venus exalted in 12th house. Now, here is a different thing. Now, we have looked at Venus expression in Bharani energy. Mars is actually conjunct Venus. Okay. Right. Now, Venus is debilitated in 6th house. So whenever Mars is strongly conjunct Venus, so 6th house is what? What is 6th house? 6th house is enemies.
Debt, enemies.
Diseases. Right. Yeah. So one way how he tackled his enemies who were police officers or foreign officers, where that Mars is the police officers, and whenever one way he tackled a couple of his police officers who were his political enemies, really they were willing to, for his advancement of his power. He actually pointed out their sexuality as he he threatened them with their sexuality. One guy was homosexual. He threatened that, okay, you are homosexual. Well, I'll make this public. Either leave your power or or leave me alone. The second guy, he said that you had sexual relationships with a prostitute. Venus is debilitated in 6th house. So he made use of this Venus debilitation energy upon his enemies to literally to make advancement in his career, which is Venus, 7th house again. It shows also your career, Bhavat of 10th house, So you can clearly see these themes playing out. And definitely, one big theme here again is to analyze, analyze these same houses from another ascendant. We made Venus Nakshatra as ascendant and analyze these entire Rashis. But if you make his Lagna itself as ascendant, these Rashis take a different house flavor. So what did he do with those police officers? He arrested them and he imprisoned them. Why? 6th house from Venus is falling in the 12th house from ascendant, So Venus, so you can see how detailed and finer the picture is becoming now. He used the fact that, okay, this police officer, had a relationship with a prostitute to imprison them. And what did he do with all his enemies? He imprisoned them.
See, the thing is now, for example, if we have the same chart, the same houses where these planets are, instead of Libra ascendant, if this would have been Aries ascendants, for example, then Venus would have got exalted at the 12th house.
Right.
So you will say that he's using Venus exaltation energy on his enemies.
Exactly.
Enemies, because it is 6th house from this Venus where it is posited in this horoscope. Since here the 6th house from Venus has got the debilitated sign of Venus, so he is using Venus debilitation energy for his enemy.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly that. So he had Aries ascendant. These natives. But see, this is the bigger thing. Venus in 6th house. What does that really mean? It can show all kinds of circumstances. It can show that either you will use sexuality of your enemies to defeat your enemies. It can show that you will have sex with your enemies. It can even show that you will have problems with workplace. You might develop relationship with people at your workplace, which is 6th house in this day and age. It can also show that you might have, female secretaries, female assistants. And it might even show that you have karma with some assistants even. Yama had Chitragupta as an assistant. Chitragupta was his entire assistant, So he was always dealing with assistants, and his assistants, Hitler's assistants actually control the flow of information from Hitler. The secretary whom Hitler had controlled the flow of information. How can you see that? Venus is debilitated in 6th house. It is ruled by Mercury. Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury controls information, So you can see how all kinds of themes are playing out just by looking at these particular Rashis in a different way. Now let's see. Okay, so now Barney Nakshatra energy, as I mentioned, it's like death-like rebirth. Let's look at the Navamsha. Where is this Venus going into? Venus is conjunct Mars, both are in the same pada of Barney. Venus is going into his 8th house in Barney, in his Navamsha. And clearly Ashtamamsa pada, his partner died, one partner clearly died. So that was one clear thing. And definitely his Eva Braun, who was his more stable, steady partner, tried to commit suicide because Hitler wasn't paying attention to her. And only thing I can...
if you see, if you very notice carefully, I think even in all his divisional charts, his Mars and Venus will be always together because it is so close.
Exactly.
See, it is 23 minutes, 24 degree, 23 minutes. For other is 24 degree, 5 minutes for Mars.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. Even in Shashtyamsha, it will be close.
Yeah, it will be very close, in fact.
Right.
So one very strong major point of, and of course we know Mars and Venus, sexual themes and all.
Right.
So those things. So definitely.
Yeah. Also, like Mars and Venus. There are many historians have a lot of theories about Hitler's sexuality. Hitler was a huge, he had his own sexual inclinations. There were a lot of pornography that was found, and a lot of sex toys that were found with Hitler. And all of this happened in a hidden manner, which is again you can see the 12th house connection with exaltation. And but
Hitler, I will pay very special attention whenever you get horoscope where you see these two planets so conjoined, so closely.
And one more thing is that Hitler also was deeply into occult information. He had a completely different section on occult information. He had his own astrologers. He had his own occult.
Which makes sense because occult, 8th house. Suddenly, when you say occult, it is 8th house. It is Scorpio. It is Mars, and Mars is with Venus. Venus is like Shukracharya, demonic thing.
Exactly.
And clearly the connection.
Yeah, and Venus is also his 8th lord in his horoscope. It is ruling Taurus, which is his 8th house, and he had an entire occult division. The Nazi bell, which was even they say that his occult division was so powerful that they completely created different. They were so powerful within his organization that they made huge decisions. For him, and but you can clearly see all of these themes play out by looking at the Navamsha placement of that particular planet. The Navamsha house placement of the particular planet is giving many themes combined with the nakshatra energy. So let's see. Those are some themes with Barney. And now here is one particular theme. So we are going to analyze his moon. And moon is how and native things. Now
we are shifting to moon. Okay.
Shifting to moon. But interesting thing is that moon is also in a Venus nakshatra. The guru of the demons nakshatra. Again, moon is again activated. And it is in Purvashada nakshatra. Purvashada nakshatra is ruled by Venus. And again, we'll look at same exaltation, debilitation, and lordships, and the Multrikon Rashis of Venus. And what you suddenly see here is a different picture playing out. So you can see that when you make moon as ascendant, Venus is exalted in the 4th house, debilitated in 10th house, and Multrikon is in 11th house. So to advance in his career, he had to make associations in his 11th house. That was the case. He had to make political associations also. Sun is debilitated in Libra. So he had to make political associations to advance in his career. And definitely he wanted. You could say that. What is Purvashada nakshatra? What does that really mean? What does Purvashada mean, Aditya?
Purvashada, I think, is a war again.
Purvashada literally means before victory.
Before the war. Uttarashada is war.
Yeah, Uttarashada is both are war nakshatras.
Yeah.
Before victory is what Purvashada literally means. Now, when do you declare victory? When there is a war, when there is a winner. Hitler was all about winning at no matter what. Hitler was all about winning at no matter what the cost, and he was so obsessive that he would take it to eccentric levels. Look at his moon. Moon is conjunct Jupiter. It is also conjunct Ketu. Now, see one interesting point, Aditya, which you mentioned that Mars and Venus are conjunct. It's a powerful conjunction. One thing I've observed is that planetary conjunctions can also act as nakshatra energies. Raj Trivedi mentions this in his book, and I've also clearly seen that. So Mars Venus is again acting like Barney nakshatra energy. Why? Barney nakshatra is ruled by Venus at the nakshatra level. It is ruled by Mars at the Rashi level. So Mars and Venus conjunct, that will act also like Barney nakshatra energy. So his Barney nakshatra energy is clearly amplified. Okay. And even for Hitler's case, Jupiter is conjunct Ketu. Jupiter conjunct Ketu can act like Mula energy.
Because Mula is in Sagittarius Rashi, so it's like Jupiter Rashi, and Mula's lord is Ketu. So Jupiter Ketu is exactly like Mula.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So he has this destructive influence of Mula, getting down to the roots. We need to destroy the world. We need to cleanse the world of this one.
But Mula is also destruction, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Mula is also destruction. As I was doing this video with Dr. Pai, very close to the galactic center, whatever comes to it, it's like, I don't know, what is that energy? Bharhana Shakti, correct? Like to destroy everything.
Yeah, it's the, it's the power to, it's Mula
power to destroy.
Yeah, and big thing with Hitler was completely, these natives, Purvashada natives are excellent strategic thinkers. They can make excellent campaign managers in this day and age. Hitler was a strategic thinker. He defeated all his political allies. He would form alliances, then he would get rid of them completely. Initially, like what happened with Hitler was that, again, one more interesting thing is that look at Moon and Jupiter nakshatra.
Purvashada is very interesting because it has got energy of Jupiter as well as Venus.
Exactly.
Both gurus are present.
Both gurus are, so these natives can be excellent motivators. He could he could invigorate people. That is the power to invigorate. That is what Purvashada is all about. But he could invigorate people in a Mula manner. Let's destroy the Jews. Let's destroy everything. Let's expand the living room for Germans. That's how he could invigorate people. Whenever he would talk his thoughts, whenever he would share his emotions, people would feel invigorated. The masses would feel invigorated. Moon is the planet for showing masses. That's literally what happened. You could clearly see that again. People would feel good whenever they listen to Hitler going about his speech. That's what Venus is 4th house again, exalted in 4th house. And you can see biggest thing with Hitler was that Purvashada is all about war. So these natives will fight wars. They will be strategic thinkers. And these natives will always be thinking in strategic thinkers. These natives are definitely inclined towards politics of their homeland. They definitely have strong opinions about politics because they themselves are like gurus of both demons and they're used to devas. So they used to that advise that realm of strategic consulting really. And again, Purvashada is also connected with elephant's tusk. So there was also writing. And how did Hitler write? He had to write in isolation, which is what Ketu indicated. He was arrested and then he had to write his book Mein Kampf, which is about my struggle. And we'll analyze that in much depth in another slide. But but this is the biggest thing. He was always thinking about war. He was a strategic thinker, and these natives have to kind of bring themselves down to the level of how can I positively elevate myself, So that is a big thing which Hitler had a strong mental inclination towards war. That is one of the reasons why he was thinking about war all the time again. And one more.
See, but can you again explain, because see, the thing is from Moon, as you have shown here, 4th house is exaltation and 6th house is lordship, correct? And again, when you go to 10th house is debilitation and 11th house is for lordship as well as for Moon Trikon.
Right. So you can look at this. Venus is exalted in the 4th house. So and debilitated in 10th house. So this country karma, karma with homeland was definitely the axis that was triggered for sure. Venus is debilitated in 10th house. So Venus was, you could say that debilitated Venus was how his image was, 10th house was. He didn't have a relationship. That was how people viewed him. And you could see that, but Venus energies are again, but look at, he brought down war on his homeland. He brought out this war, this Purvashada Nakshatra energy of war upon his homeland again, 4th house, but Venus is finally going into 5th house from Moon itself. And you could also say that this war brought about a lot of destruction. Why? Because Venus is in Bharani Nakshatra. So this is like Nakshatra to Nakshatra now, You're looking at Purvashada Nakshatra, looking at the Nakshatra Lord, looking at that Nakshatra. You can see how when he declared war, finally the end result was what? Bharani, death and destruction. That's what happened, So that is one way to look at that. And a lot of children died, for generations that was happening. And his philosophy, Moon is also Jupiter. Jupiter also conjunct Ketu. Ketu is connected with the race genes, Jupiter is also aspecting Rahu. He was entirely all about cleansing one particular race, the race of Jews. And you could say that it was probably some past life karmic influence that was bringing him. He was there to clear out the Jews, one particular race, through some past life karma. But so that would be one way. Venus debilitated in 10th house. He definitely had to, form alliances for his career. Venus is the natural 7th house. He had to a lot of diplomacy. That was literally his career. And then war again, that was also his career influence. So these natives, Purvashada natives might be more inclined towards, fighting war at the workplace. They'll be very strategic. And for these natives, actually, for them to feel better, they just need to go back to their home. Because Venus is exalted in 4th house. Also, Venus is, he was all about forming alliances. Venus is 11th house, that's the only way to survive in a political,
No, because 11th house is big organizations and all
exactly,
those stuff. So
exactly.
Collaborations, big organizations.
Exactly. And then finally, when you look at the Navamsha, you see that interesting thing is that Moon is going into 9th house from itself. So his mother was actually one of the more calming influences of his life. His mother supported him financially for a long time. Again, financially, look at Moon is conjunct Jupiter.
I didn't get it. Moon is going 9th house from itself.
So Moon is in Leo in his Navamsha Rashi. Moon is in Sagittarius in his Rashi chart. So from Rashi chart, Sagittarius, it is going into Leo 9th house in his Navamsha. So his mother was definitely one of the harmonious influences of his life, to the point where he also felt like his half niece reminded him of his mother a lot. So that was, you could say that Venus influence. His mother was like this subconscious influence of relationship in his life, So that was one thing there. And his mother also supported him financially, as you can see through Moon-Jupiter conjunction, but then his mother's finances dried up and then he had a difficult life from there on. But again, what is also interesting is that he was born in Austria, and he was a huge patriot of Germany instead. So you can see that interesting motherland twisting concept happening with this Moon Ketu conjunction. He wasn't interested in the motherland where he was born, but in a foreign land. Again, so he wouldn't sing national anthem of Austria, but he would sing the national anthem of Germany instead. And that was common in the day and age because there was a lot of political instability, things like that. But the interesting thing is his 9th house. So you can see his motherland was again a foreign land, So that was how his subconscious was feeling, his Navamsha was feeling. And eventually he even ended up migrating to Germany also. That was another thing. But one interesting thing you could see is this relationship of 5th house between the nakshatra and its nakshatra lord. Venus is 5 houses away from Moon. And in Navamsha, it's actually 4 houses away from Moon. So there's a research point. How his declaration of war was very creative and all of that. With 5th house teams, he unleashed a lot of destructive war-like forces. And that also happened upon his homeland, So this is 4th house theme. You could again see this theme happening. And it's also like Venus going into Ashtamamsa Pada, so that component of death and destruction is also happening. So this is one, that is an interesting research point, something to research upon, this particular influence. But this is, you can see all these themes play out. Now let's look at his sun. Sun is in Ashwini. Ashwini is ruled by Ketu. And we know that Ketu is co-lord of Scorpio. Ketu is actually exalted in Scorpio. It is debilitated in Taurus Rashi, which is what those triangles are. It is co-lord of Scorpio, along with Mars. This is actually, we are considering Ketu's Multrikon to fall in Capricorn. And there are many theories about this. We'll analyze another set of theories.
Yeah, but we have already said that we consider Ketu's Multrikon as Capricorn.
Right. So one thing is that what is Sun in Ashwini? Ashwini is all about dealing with emergencies because they are the quickest one to deal with.
Yes, yeah.
Hitler could only rise to power. Power is again connected with Sun. His Sun could be activated only when there was an emergency. Only when there was a great economic depression, when there was an emergency throughout the world, only then could he rise to power. That's what his political strategy was. He was all about destroying the Jews because why? He was claiming that the Jews were backstabbed them, So there was this, again, Ketu's influence of look at the past, look at this particular race, look at what this race did to us during the World War I when we were backstabbed, And that was his complete strategy, political strategy. And you can see those themes play out here clearly. His rise to power was when this emergency happened. Ketu's Multrikon is in his 10th house, from Sun. And Ashwini was how he was famous for his blitzkrieg, lightning war. Ashwini is all about quick war, The war which happened was very quick. Sun ensured that the first strike was very strong, That's what happened. And Ashwini is also connected with, he was so quick that he was actually a messenger for the army. So and he won a medal called Iron Cross. Iron is again, Iron is again Saturn and Mars, and Cross is again, Saturn and Mars. So he actually won medal for his work in the army. And medals is what? Sun is his 11th lord. 11th lord for service in the army.
You said lightning strike and all. I was thinking whether he has got something in Ardra.
Yeah, definitely. His Rahu is actually in Punarvasu Nakshatra, but his sun is falling in the Navamsha Nakshatra of Ardra.
Oh, okay.
So that is a very good point which you raised,
8 Aries, it comes in Ardra.
So that is definitely lightning strike, lightning strike, no doubt. But also, like, look at finally where is Ketu is going. Ketu is going into his ninth house from Sun. You can clearly see how there was the influence of these beliefs, this political philosophy which he had to have for him to rise in his career. He had to write a book in isolation. He wrote the Mein Kampf in isolation, and that's how he actually, he gained more honor and prestige, stuff like that. And Ashwini is also connected interestingly with travel, because Ashwini Kumar is traveling golden chariots. So these natives are involved in logistics. Hitler was one of the only Hitler was the only political leader who did his political campaigns by using helicopters. He would distribute political pamphlets by using, not helicopters, by using planes. He would use planes to distribute his political this thing and pamphlets. And Sun is conjunct Mercury also. Mercury is actually controlling the conjunction. Mercury is in 3 degrees in the same nakshatra.
Politics and all also we see Jupiter. Brihaspati was like always doing politics for gods and all, to go to fight.
Exactly.
And to prepare God for fighting with demons and all. So
exactly, yeah. And Jupiter aspecting, Jupiter aspecting his Sun is, so clearly that was happening also. No doubt about that. Also Sun is also the political planet. It's also all about power. We already know that Sun has an, invincible influence here over his ascendant with his debilitation of Sun. And Sun is having an Ashwini. So he wanted to be the leader. He was also impulsive, erratic. It said that, the only reason why Germany couldn't defeat Russia was his Sun was exalted. Germany couldn't defeat Russia because Hitler was so egoistic about wanting to capture St. Petersburg, right, or Leningrad in that day and age, that he withdrew his forces from Moscow. His forces were 250 miles border of Moscow, which is the capital of Russia. He withdrew his armed forces from Moscow down to Leningrad. That was the only political strategic mistake which he made, because of which Russia were able to recoup and regenerate themselves, and they were able to defeat Hitler.
Okay.
And that is clearly seen through the Ashwini Nakshatra energy of impulsivity, egoisticness, and really not committing completely to the action. The first action of Ashwini Nakshatras will be great. They are great starters. Hitler started off a war. That was great. He was winning initially. But then what happened was that, the Ashwini Nakshatra energy went out. He couldn't maintain. He didn't listen to his advisor. Why didn't he listen to his advisor? Ketu is in his 9th house of advice. 9th house of Guru. Ketu, he was like, I don't care about the advisors. The military strategist said that, let's not do this, but he still continued doing it. So that's what happened. And Ashwini Nakshatra energy is clearly played out. So let's see. Now, what is Sun doing in his Navamsha? Sun is actually going into 3rd house from its Rashi placement, So actually you can see that, actually you can see one interesting thing is that 3rd house from Rashi placement. He actually, what is 3rd house? What is 3rd house? 3rd house is connected with...
No, 3rd house is short travel. 3rd house is basically, media again.
Yeah, short travels, walking is 3rd house. What was Hitler's job in the army? He was a messenger. He was walking. He was running actually. And look at that. Sun is actually, one of this interesting thing about Hitler was that he was arrested for his beer hall push. Hitler was making very famous speeches about, in beer hall speeches made by Hitler was very, very famous. He would go to bars or beer halls and make speeches. And that's how he attained fame. And why is this connection with beer hall coming? Why is this connection with beer coming? Ashwini Kumars were chasing the Amrit. They were chasing the elixir of life.
Oh, yeah.
The German equivalent of Amrit is beer, the elixir of life.
Correct.
People are drinking beer, they are elevating life. So Hitler had to connect this Ashwini Nakshatra energy. And that's how he attained fame, mass fame, like Sun is there. And Sun is also Karka for fame also. And interesting thing what happened was that Hitler tried to get power through doing a beer hall push. He started off from a beer hall. He started off from a bar straight to the parliament building so as to get power, so as to literally cause a military coup. That was what he was trying to do. He threatened some military leaders saying that, okay, you should collaborate with us. We are going to take entire power from this country. We are going to do the military coup. Initially, the military leaders agreed, but then eventually they switched back. Within like a couple of days, they switched back. And then, so he literally marched off from one beer hall to the parliamentary building to get power. Why did the march off happen? Sun is going into third house into Navamsha. He tried to attain power through marching, through walking, literally third house. But it didn't work out. Why? If you superimpose the Navamsha chart and Rashi chart, you can see the sun is falling on top of Rahu. Sun is falling on top of Rahu. So Rahu has to mature first. If Rahu hasn't matured, he's going to cause problems. He was arrested.
Yeah.
Hitler was arrested. Hitler was, he was sentenced for 5 years of imprisonment. Finally, he came out, his sentence was shortened, and he agreed that, okay, I won't gather power through any kind of, I'll only gather power through democratic means. He agreed to that. That's why he had to resort to a lot of legal measures, to attain power. Initially, there was a president, as a couple of industrialists, couple of industry leaders wrote to the president. When economic depression happened, the entire country was in chaos. There was no political stability. No government was being able to form because of instability with parties and stuff like that. So what a couple of industry leaders actually appealed to the president, saying that, look, we need some government. You need to appoint Hitler, which is the leader of the second majority party, as some kind of position and make him the chancellor. So initially there were two positions. Ashwini Kumar's twins, two positions. Initially there was the president and a chancellor. Eventually, when the president died, he became the complete Führer, the Führer title. The dictator, the entire king, the chancellor of entire Germany. That's how it happened. So again, you can see the nakshatra things play out clearly, beautifully. In fact, this beer hole push, the Sun Rahu superimposition causing problems. And let's see. Again, look at where Ketu is going into Navamsha. It's going into 12th house from itself. So actually, you can see how this, isolation theme happened. He had to be imprisoned. Whenever he activated his sun, or whenever he activated his sun Ketu, Ashwini energy, but whenever he activated the beer hole march, all the Ashwini nakshatra energy, 12th house from Ketu also became important in his life, Now, another alternate set of theories is that you can consider Ketu as being exalted in Sagittarius and being debilitated in his third house. If you consider that particular theory, then you can clearly see how this third house effect played out. How this Ketu debilitation effect or isolation happening through his march for political power, and how that had to be stabilized by writing a book again. Look at Nakshatra Lord going into 9th house. He had to write a book, literally. He wrote 2 volumes. Again, Ashwini Kumar's twins, he wrote 2 volumes for main camps. So, a lot of details coming up, and Ketu exalted in 9th house, debilitated in 10th house, but eventually he rose to his political power. That was kind of karmic, in fact. And let's see. Now I want to highlight one fact. What is the Mooltrikon Rashi of Mars?
Mooltrikon Aries.
Aries. So actually it is also within Ashwini Nakshatra also. And he has his sun there in Aries. And you can also consider the invisible influence of Mars being active for Hitler. Now what happened in Hitler's case?
No, I didn't get. There was some sound issue.
Okay. So I was saying that you can also consider the invisible influence of Mars.
Okay.
His sun. Why?
Okay,
because Mooltrikon Rashi of Mars is Aries. Now we know that Mars is actually having its Mooltrikon in Aries. It is debilitated. It is exalted in Capricorn. It is debilitated in Cancer. Now, interesting thing that happened, and it's also it's also loading Aries and Scorpio. Interesting thing that happened was that Sun is also Karka for government.
Correct.
Fourth house from Sun can indicate government buildings. Mars is debilitated in 4th house from government. Mars is debilitated there. There was actually a fire that was caught at the German parliament or the Reichstag. And this Reichstag fire, so you can clearly...
Again Mars.
Again Mars, fire is again Mars. Exactly. So this Reichstag fire was how he was able to defeat some of his enemies.
Okay.
So one Reichstag fire happened. His government office got fire, and one complete set of the communists were deemed as responsible for setting off the fire because and then they were arrested. All Ketu teams. They were arrested, isolated, and then that's how he rose to political power again. Mars is exalted in 10th house from Ashwini. So you can see he rose his power. Mars, this fire actually improved his career. Even though it destroyed the government building, it improved Hitler's career. And you can see this fire.
But why I could see enemies from here?
Yeah, enemies. Mars is also Karaka for enemies. Mars is Karaka for the people you will fight against. So that is one more way. He fought against all the. One way, clear way to practice Jyotish is to simply make a sentence out of all the Karakas. You will literally see the events play out. Like Mars fire, Mars enemies, Mars like army officers, military. You make a sentence, you literally made Hitler's life. So that is one thing here. And this was a very interesting thing. This is showing the invisible influence effect of Mars. Now, we have already made a video on Ashlesha Nakshatra. I've explained the Pi Paddathi concept there. So anyone can refer to that video clearly. And one thing I want to highlight here was that Hitler actually had a very troubled childhood. He had a very troubled childhood. And that is a big thing. And he actually almost fought with his father all the time. One of the big things that caused him to fight with his father was when his father changed their home when he was young. He's having Saturn in Ashlesha. Ashlesha is ruled by which planet, Aditya?
Mercury.
Mercury is debilitated in his 9th house of father. Ashlesha natives definitely have karma with their father. He has malefic Saturn there. Saturn is a natural 4th house of the zodiac, which is home. Whenever his father changed his home, Hitler had an antagonism with his father. 9th house is also what other significations, Aditya?
9th house is teachers, 9th house is philosophy, 9th house is religion, 9th house is higher education.
Also, higher education. He fought with his father about his higher education. His father wanted him to become a technician or an engineer in that day and age. But he was like, no, I want to be an artist. He fought with his father violently. No, I won't go to technical school.
Typical Indian parents, huh?
Typical German parents,
Even Indian parents are like that, correct? Engineering.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that's parents. That's what he had karma with his father. That had to happen. And in that day and age, there was no engineering schools. The people had to go to technical schools early on. That was a big deal. Getting into a polytechnic itself was a big deal. But Hitler was I can't get any. I don't want any this thing. But
interesting, you are mentioning even I have Mars in Ashlesha, and I also fought with my father for the same engineering thing.
Yeah, exactly. You fought with your father, same thing. But see, why again Mars? Again, you can see that Ashlesha Mercury is going to his 10th house. Also, showing how his career of that messenger happened. Career as an army messenger happened. Also, another interesting thing is that Mercury. He was actually hired as a spy by the army to go and investigate one political party. He went into that political party. He was so enraptured by the leader that he also had a strong political philosophy happening. And to the point where he was like, "I'll just switch to a political party. I'll give up army." That's what happened. Mercury is conjunct Sun, the leader. It's showing the leader of political party. And look at his Mercury itself. Mercury exalted in his 3rd house, clearly showing he was able to hypnotize people through his speech. Literally, he was able to hypnotize people, So it is great. You could clearly see his powerful Saturn. His Saturn was very, very powerful. You could even say that his karma was to hypnotize people into Mars frenzy to the point of destruction, really. To the point of literally.
Mars has got directional strength, right? It is in the 10th house too. So
exactly. From this point, Mars is having 10th house directional strength. And on top of that, what is the debilitation Rashi of Mars?
It's, I think, the debilitation Rashi is Aries.
No, debilitation Rashi.
No, not. I'm thinking about Saturn. Debilitation Rashi of Mars is Cancer.
Cancer, right. So debilitation, so there is this invisible influence of Mars upon his Saturn. We already saw how that is influencing his Martian army career. But then Mars is always going to cause problems. So you can see how he was a spy for the army, clearly from this case. Ashlesha natives are extreme great spies, no doubt, So like you can clearly see how he was a spy for the army from the Navy. And then how is the moment the big change in his career happened when he began to spy for a political party, spy a political party for the army. That's when his career completely changed. Mars Multrikon got activated. Invisible influence of Mars upon Ashlesha got activated. Exactly that. And so yeah, this is a very interesting theme. Now finally we'll go into the last planet. We'll go into Rahu. Hitler started his Rahu Dasha in 1931. The Great Economic Depression happened in the world in 1929. After 1929, there were a lot of elections in Germany and stuff. So, but it was during his Rahu Dasha that Hitler had the greatest achievements and greatest of falls. We'll look into that into some details. Now, his Rahu is actually in 23-degree Gemini.
I think he was not able to complete his Rahu Dasha. Before that, he died. Correct?
Yeah, exactly. He was in his Rahu Venus Dasha when he died. And he was in his Rahu Venus Dasha. So he was almost like 3/4 way, I would say, 3/4 way. Right. So like almost halfway, I would say, more than half, definitely.
Yeah, 30, I think 31 to 42. It's like 11 years out of 18, say.
Yeah, exactly. About that. So like two-thirds of the way, probably.
60%, yeah. 60%.
Right. So his Rahu is actually in Punarvasu Nakshatra. What is Punarvasu Nakshatra? Punarvasu Nakshatra is
again coming back,
repeating, beginning again. Interesting thing, what happened is that he was elected as leader. He became the leader of the majority political party, and then eventually over time, but he still had to form alliances. So there were about 3 or 4 elections by the time which Hitler could rise to power. So he had to be elected again. This repetition theme happened again. And this Rahu is in Jupiter. And Jupiter is exalted in 2nd house of Cancer, debilitated in 8th house of Capricorn. This is honor of his career house of 10th house of Pisces from Rahu ascendant, and is also 7th lord of relationships as well. And finally, Jupiter is having its Multrikon in Sagittarius Rashi.
Yeah.
And finally, Nakshatra Lord of Punarvasu is Jupiter, and it is going into 7th house again. So you can see how during this time, he became a leader, like a guru.
Something with marriages, something issues.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, exactly. Definitely big, huge issues with marriages also. Because his
7th house, because Jupiter is 7th from Rahu.
Exactly. And Jupiter is 7th from Rahu. His niece cheated with him, with his driver. His niece with whom he had a relationship, whom he was extremely protective about, obsessed about, cheated with his driver, and she killed herself. She shot herself into the lung. And so he had to restart. It pulled him into complete depression. Jupiter is conjunct Ketu, and it is also conjunct his moon as well. So this relationship theme during his Rahu Dasha clearly, pulled him into depression.
And do you know which year it was around?
I think it was around 1933 or something like that, 33, 34. But then
it was like exactly Rahu, the Rahu Jupiter maybe, who knows?
Yeah, probably. Rahu Jupiter.
It's like Rahu Jupiter.
Yeah, Rahu Jupiter. Good chance for that.
Yeah, Rahu is for 2 years, 8 months is Rahu.
Right.
So I think it is 2710, that means around 34 beginning, it is Rahu ends.
Yeah. So but see, one thing that's clear is that by looking at looking at the nakshatra, the lordship, it's very clear. You yourself asked me, did he have any problem with relationships?
Yeah.
He had a restart with the relationship. Why? Because his niece died. He had a restart, and you can see clearly. Punarvasu again, restart theme. His Jupiter is in Purvashada nakshatra ruled by Venus, again signifying this restart with the relationship. Again, what happened with Venus with his relationship? His Venus is conjunct Mercury, or his niece took a weapon and killed herself. She shot herself. That's what happened. It pulled him into depression, but he was able to restart.
It makes sense because see, his Venus is with Mars.
Exactly.
Horoscope. So Venus means it's like Karak for wife or something like Karak for wife. So it's like wife getting. Mars is like sharp objects.
Exactly. Exactly.
Makes sense.
Exactly. And also, then after his niece died, he had a new relationship with an actress, Eva Brown.
Okay.
You know, again, you can see the Venusian influence upon his relationship life. In Purvashada Nakshatra is also is the highest expression of Venus energy, the Sattvic expression of Venusian energy. So these natives are definitely model-like, very graceful, very actresses in those days and times. So you can see how he had a restart of the relationship with this actress. But obviously, this was very protective. No one knew about this. You know, his public image was completely different. Rahul, like, you know, he was like, you know, no one will know. Only my inner circle will know. It was very private. Because Jupiter was definitely, you could say that it was debilitated in 8th house. So there was death for sure. His relationships was very secretive. 8th house was also secrets, deeper secrets. You know, his life was definitely a secret. Only his inner circle people knew. And then interesting thing is that this was a time when Hitler rose to power. So as I said, he was elected again and again as president. And initially there were two people, like chancellor and president. And by the third time of election, the way he consolidated his power was by making many laws. Numerous laws had to be passed. Jupiter is in Purvashadam again. Jupiter is also connected with laws. It was only by consolidating laws could he finally call himself the supreme chancellor of Germany. So it was like the switching of army. He had to become commander of army. That had to be a law first before he could be a commander of army. You can clearly see all this writing. Jupiter is in Purvashada of writing. This nakshatra of Purvashada also playing out along with Punarasu. And that had to be again and again and again, you know, until the military would completely come under his control. And only after that did he really bring about all this destruction, you know. The bigger theme was that again about war economy was how he formulated his ideas. You know, this is going to be a war economy. People were working for 50 hours a week because it was war time. And why is it war? Jupiter is again in Purvashada Nakshatra connected with war. Jupiter is debilitated in 2nd house. So again, you can see that war economy theme, you know, playing out. Now, so Rahu Dasha, the biggest strategic mistake for Hitler was to happen during his Rahu Ketu Dasha. Rahu Ketu period. That was when he was like, you know, let's divert all the forces from Moscow to Leningrad. And you can see this Rahu Ketu clearly made his mind eccentric. You know, there was this like people, he gave eccentric, he began to micromanage people. Ketu is all about going into details. He started interfering in the battle strategies. German people, he started getting rid of advisors of the German military strategists. And he was like, I am going to do it, you know. And Ketu is also dispositor of Sun. And that clearly destroyed everything. Micromanaging people destroyed from this point on outwards. From this point in time onwards, he began micromanaging. Everything got destroyed. Germany got destroyed. Everything got destroyed. And then, so you can see that theme. Now looking at his Navamsha, his Rahu is going into 12th house. So you can see clearly how Rahu took him to great heights. But eventually it led him to like great loss because Rahu is going into 12th house from itself. This would have been a great spiritual time for Hitler. Hitler definitely had a lot of spiritual experience potentially, a lot of occult time, a lot of foreign time, dealing with foreign influences. So all 12th house themes happening, you know, from Rahu going into 12th house. And then great time of loss even. Even when Rahu is going into Taurus, which is ruled by Venus again. Look at Rahu's conjunct is Mercury, which is also Karka for nieces. Clearly loss of his niece happened during Rahu Dasha, you know. In his Navamsha. All this is becoming clear from his Navamsha. And yeah, but that's about it, you know. But biggest theme here is that after Rahu Ketu Dasha, he started.
Generally, what I feel is, sorry, I'm interrupting, but Rahu Ketu, they say Rahu is 18 years period, and the first half of Rahu, second half of Rahu. And it's interesting that first half of Rahu will be Rahu till Mercury, and from Ketu onwards is probably the next half will start around.
Right.
So it's like complete reversal.
Exactly. You know? Exactly. Complete reversal happened, you know. So, but see, a typical for a Rahu Ketu time is a great time for spiritual experiences. Great time for attaining spiritual experiences. Hitler probably had spiritual experiences, you know. But biggest problem that happened was that Ketu is in Purvashada Nakshatra, conjunct Moon and conjunct Jupiter, which is also the 6th lord. He was definitely dealing with his enemies, you know, past life enemies, racial enemies. He was bringing about the racial cleansings. And see, another thing with Rahu and Punarasu is that he was claiming that the foreign policy of Germany is simply that Germans need more living room in Europe. living room is connected with house. Punarasu is also connected with coming back home again. It's a living room. Expand your living room. That's what his entire foreign policy is. His foreign policy. Rahu in 9th house. 9th house is foreign. Rahu is the foreign policy again. Foreign policy again. Rahu, Jupiter. Jupiter is in Punarasu. Jupiter is again policy, laws. His entire foreign policy was, okay, we need to expand our living room for Germans. That was his foreign policy, plain and simple. That was how he convinced his military folks. And it's really amazing to see these nakshatra trees play out to the exact, to the exact effect. And how when you analyze these houses, you are getting a deeper understanding of how it also played out. The exact houses which got involved and exact houses, how it finally played out. And when you go into the Navamsha level, you further see the depth, the more in-depth nature of this thing. And finally, Hitler died in his Rahu Venus Dasha. Venus, as you know, is like, you can see here, Venus is in this Conjunct Ketu, in his Navamsha. The moment, 2 days after he got married, he died. He shot himself. He committed suicide. Venus is Conjunct Ketu, Conjunct Mars, again, And, and Venus is also had his Mool Trikona in Libra. So his marriage, no matter what, is going to create some kind of activation, upon his life. And when his D9 got completely activated, I mean, D9 was already getting activated for sure. When he married, his D9 got more activated. His Marka house, Scorpio got activated from his Rashi chart. And then he also died.
He was married to his niece, which before you mentioned.
No, he wasn't married. He wasn't married to a niece. He was probably having a relationship with his niece. It was very private. But he was definitely married to Eva Braun. There was a small private ceremony.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And from that onwards,
2 days on 2 days. And obviously, the Allied forces were already reaching Berlin. And, he was nearing his death. So he decided to stay in Berlin. He and his partner decided, okay, we'll do and his partner actually died through, suicide again. So again, Venus, Conjunct Ketu, Mars, Malefic, all of that.
Venus, Mars, yeah, which makes sense again. Yeah.
And one of the things with Rahu, Gemini is Hitler used to have a lot of stomach issues, and he was actually that was another thing. You can clearly see Venus for Barney. Venus debilitated in 6th house, so a lot of digestive issues, all of that. But all of that. But anyways, you can see clearly how that Rahu Venus was the ending period. And I hope that you were able to understand some more additional layers of Pai Paddathi, of looking things.
So what was my thinking was, you have shown each planet, and then probably you have also taken the position in Navamshas, right, plus Rashi. So as you mentioned, so I think you had put this into Navamsha too, Navamsha chart too. So even not only D1 but also in D9 we have to look. That's another one message.
Exactly, definitely, no doubt. And by looking at the Nakshatra Lord position, looking at the planetary position in Navamsha, you are getting a much more clearer picture of what is going to happen, or what actually happens.
And then you basically, you structure Rashi with Rashi chart on Navamsha chart and then try to...
Yeah, superimposing Rashi and Navamsha chart, no doubt. You will get 100% result. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, I hope this was great, and thank you, Aditya.
Rashi on Navamsha chart on Rashi, which they say, we are putting the same thing, Pai Paddathi, on basically both now.
Exactly, yeah, that's it. You are looking at that, and you can further analyze the Navamsha chart and get more detail, You can apply Pai Paddathi upon Navamsha chart and further get more detail, but then depends upon how much detail you want to go. But there's no doubt, looking at the nakshatras and analyzing, doing the Pai Paddathi kind of analysis upon these nakshatras, you could clearly see how Hitler's life play out. There's no doubt about that, And understanding the nakshatras was also helping. So
correct.
So yeah, okay, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Aditya, for joining me and for being involved in the discussion. But I hope the people would understand deeper layers of Pai Paddathi.
This is really interesting, and you have shown us how maybe one step further about putting into D9 and also with D1. So that's nice. And I am really thankful to you for helping us out and giving us more insights into Pai Paddathi. So thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
Great. Yeah, great. Thank you, Aditya. Thanks to Kapil ji.
Thanks to Kapil ji too. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah.